I want to talk to you guys today about something that came up as part of a discussion within the Odysseus undertaking. Now, if you don't know what that is, it's a mastermind that's designed to help men improve their presence. Because ultimately, everything that we talk about when it comes to style and grooming and all that other stuff really doesn't matter other than when it's contributing to your entire presence. And if you don't have a strong presence, then you miss out on a lot of opportunities as a man. One of the things that we were talking about is this idea of your effort being limited. And it's something that I personally see in my own life. I know that I have limitations on what I'm able to do, and oftentimes my desires to improve my life come into conflict with these limitations. So for example, I continue to want to build this channel, and I continue to want to build everything that I'm doing there. I continue to want to build Beckett and Rob and help with the brand and build it because it's a part of who I am now. I continue to want to be a better husband and a better father, to serve better in my church. I want to get into better shape. I want to pick up more hobbies. I want to develop some hard skills as opposed to just the soft skills that I have. I want to write. I have all these things in my life that I want to do, and I'm sure that you're probably the same way. And the problem is if I don't properly allocate my energy or my focus, if I spend 10 minutes at 90% on this thing and then another day at 90% on the other one, then ultimately I just end up sucking at everything. And so what I need to do is figure out which things I need to maintain into 50%, which things in my life I'm really, really good at, that I can already drop down to like a 30% maintenance level, and then pick a couple of things that I can put up here that it's like, okay, these are the things I'm gonna focus my 90% on. So I was having this discussion with the guys in the undertaking, and it made me think a little bit more about the idea of telling a story. And I know that we've talked about this before. In fact, I have a whole course called Style is Storytelling, because your clothing tells a story about you, and that's very intentional that I'm using this same language again. When you think about the story that your style tells, there's a big difference between getting in the major plot points or then filling in the fine details. So take The Lord of the Rings, for example. Epic storytelling that's withstood the test of time. It's something that most people are aware of the story. And if I were to tell my kids the story of The Lord of the Rings, and I were to say that it was about a group of different races, and there was an evil guy who was trying to get a hold of a ring of power, and it's about the wars and the exploits of these different people who formed a fellowship trying to figure out how to get the ring destroyed. I'm not missing any major plot points. I'm not like injecting things about like space aliens or detective scenes or stuff like that. But at the same time, the details of the story obviously leave a lot to be desired. It's very different to hear me give a very simple synopsis like that compared to actually going in and reading the book. And your style, or really anything when it comes to trying to improve your presence, your posture, your ability to speak, or any of these other things, they follow this same kind of idea. As you're first getting started with this, you need to fill out what the major plot points are. You need to determine what the story is that you want to tell with your style or with your presence. And that's where I teach guys about the archetypes. That's where I have you start off with simple things like the staples, because those are designed to help you figure out what the major plot points are. Are you telling an epic fantasy like Lord of the Rings? Are you telling a crime story or something like out of a Pulp Fiction novel or whatever it may be? You need to figure out what those main plot points of your story are. That's the same thing with your personal life. Your style needs to have these main things. Are you a rugged guy? Are you a refined guy? Are you rakish? And then as you get a little bit deeper in, then you could start to flesh things out a little bit. You could start building some depth and dimension to your characters. You could start getting in subplots and how you're going to twist and turn and weave all these things together, which is really like figuring out who your tribe is and your location and your environment and how that affects your style and how that affects the way that you talk and the language that you use, or all these other variables of presence. And then ultimately you can get down to the really fine descriptions of things. And that's one of the things that makes a story like The Lord of the Rings so compelling, is that Tolkien does such a good job of being able to use descriptions that pull you into his world. And with your style or your presence, then that's when you can get to that point as well. You can really focus on these fine details, and that's where things like your own personal taste or your own personal flair come in. Now, the problem that happens with guys who don't dress very well or who make mistakes as they try to dress well can be very similar to those that you experience as a storyteller. Either you don't have a cohesive story and it just feels like it's a bunch of disjointed short stories that don't mean anything, or you've got a lot of details but no real major plot points filled in. And I know that I experienced that as I started dressing better. Is I would get really focused on things like, oh, those shoelaces are so cool, or yeah, I need to get a bracelet like that, when the rest of my game wasn't on point. And so by starting with just the details and not worrying about the major plot points, you're wasting energy because you don't even know if those details are going to matter once you get the plot points. And so it's so crucial that you figure out what the story is that you want to tell. Then you figure out ways to tell it a little bit better, and then you can continue to fine-tune exactly how you want to tell it. Now, on the flip side of that, going back to this idea of effort, this is why I don't really want to focus, at least for the next little while, I don't necessarily want to focus on dressing better. Because I feel like not only do I have the major plot points filled out, I have the character arcs and the smaller plot points filled out, but I even have some really descriptive detail going on. I think for the most part, when somebody sees me, they see my clothing and they are hearing the same story that I'm telling. I think that I've got that down. And so the return on investment for me to continue to fine tune and put more and more effort into these little intricate details, it's not there. Just like an author trying to decide if he's going to say the leaves rustled in the wind or the wind moved through the leaves effortlessly. They both tell pretty much the same thing. Yeah, there's a little bit of a nuanced difference, but it's not like, does the main character die in the final battle or not? You know, that's a big major plot point. That's the kind of thing. And so what I should be doing and what you should be doing is taking this whole idea that we started talking about at the beginning of the video, the idea that you have finite effort, and applying that effort in the right places. When it comes to anything in your life, your relationships, your presence, your business and what you do for a living, anything. Are you spending your energy focusing on the fine details when you've got major plot holes? Or can you move on? Especially because your life isn't just one story, it's a series. I've got my style story, and then I've got my family story, and I've got my business story. And if I am so comfortable, and really that's what it comes down to is my comfort zone, I'm comfortable fine-tuning my style. If I'm so comfortable that I'm spending all my energy here fine-tuning and making this story 100% perfect, but I haven't developed my family story or my business story or any of the other stories that are part of my life, then I'm wasting my effort over here. And the same goes in any other direction. If you've got all this other stuff on lock and your presence sucks because you're not comfortable working on your presence, you need to figure out how to get comfortable working on your presence and actually make that better. So I guess the way that I want you guys to think about this is I want you to take this idea and really think about it with yourself. Are you focusing on something that's just detail? Are you putting in your finite efforts into something that isn't going to make a big difference when you should be spending that effort putting it into something that really is a major difference? And again, don't get me wrong, don't think that what I'm saying is that detail doesn't matter, because detail absolutely matters. That's what makes good, compelling storytelling. But perfection in details, when you have major plot holes, is a conflation of value and you just got your priorities mixed up. Again, I'll wait to hear what you guys have to say on this one. Leave me a comment below, leave it a thumbs up, and as always, I will catch you on the next one.